let's get into the big topic of open source, something that we actually say at Red Hat.
This is so awesome.
We are an open culture that believes in the importance of
What is that process that a developer, or let's say
as the Kubernetes ecosystem really boomed?
Hello and welcome to this week's Ask an OpenShift Admin Office Hours live stream. I am Andrew Sullivan, joined as always by the amazing and incredible Mr. Jonny Rickard. How are you today, sir?
It's Wednesday. It's Red Hat Wednesday.
It is. It is Red Hat TV, Red Hat live streaming. I don't even know what we call it anymore because it's changed a few times, but it is Red Hat live streaming Wednesday. So
yes.
Hello to everyone. I hope that everybody is doing well out there. This stream is one that we kind of put together last minute, and really it's because I like to think that Brad took the bait of my incompetence. So for anybody who was watching us last week, right, I was showing we showed hosted control planes, which while they don't rely on ACM, Advanced Cluster Management, in order to function, ACM adds a tremendous amount of value there. A lot of manageability, just like a pretty UI for provisioning clusters, as well as all of the other stuff that ACM does. And I struggled. I couldn't, I couldn't find the link for the Grafana to bring up the reporting dashboards and all that other stuff. So Brad had pinged me while I was struggling, and I wasn't looking at Slack at the time. And we said, well, Brad, wouldn't it be great if you came on and talked about ACM? And here we are. So Brad, Christian, thank you for joining us today. I'll ask that you introduce yourselves, and then Jonny and I will do our quick top of mind stuff.
Yep, I definitely took the bait, and thank you for always hosting these and allowing us to come on and share the good bits we're building here on the ACM team. And I'm a product manager on Advanced Cluster Management for Kubernetes. We'll just call that ACM to keep it short. And I work alongside my peer, Christian Stark, who has some expertise in driving the virtualization capabilities within ACM.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. So I'm in charge as a technical product manager for application lifecycle management. So for all the GitOps scenarios with ACM for the observability part. So for the multi-cluster monitoring, certainly we are working very closely with the OpenShift monitoring team together. And we are in charge for the big new thing, the OpenShift Virtualization integration. So thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you all. So we'll get, I know we want to dive into that here in a little bit. I think you'll have some demos and just lots of stuff to talk about, including some roadmap things. So we'll get to that shortly. But first, let's start with any top of mind stuff, Jonny.
Yeah, so it's going to be real quick this week. We have Summit next week. So anybody on this call, any
Summit is next week?
If you haven't heard, Red Hat Summit is next week. So yeah, I think everybody on this call has had some level of involvement with what's going on next week. So I'll be there. I know you're going to be there, Sully. Brad, I'm not sure. Are you going to be there?
Just in spirit. Yep.
Awesome.
Only remote. My talk was not accepted.
Oh, that's too bad. I don't think I've met either one of you in person yet. So I'm looking forward to that. One day it's going to happen.
Yeah, I hope.
So Summit next week. It's going to be amazing. My talk is on Tuesday afternoon. It's on HyperShift and cost savings that we have within our team. So yeah, come check it out.
Yeah, I think I'm in the booth, the OpenShift booth, Monday and Tuesday evenings. So I'll be, for anybody who's at the event, when you walk into the expo floor there, you'll see the big Red Hat booth in the middle, OpenShift, and all of our stuff is, I think, towards the right side. And there will be a Ask the Experts desk there. So I'm sure I will be at the Ask the Experts desk or in the vicinity of that for a couple hours each afternoon or each evening. So please come by. Stop, say hello, chat with the folks that are there. I think we have a ton of swag that's going to be in the booth. They were reviewing it with us yesterday. Jonny, I think I sent you a screenshot.
Yes,
they're doing a little carabiner. So you get the little carabiner, and then as you go around and talk with various people about each of the technologies, they give you a little, for lack of a better term, charm to go on the carabiner. And so I think there's 15 in all that you can collect, and you can jingle jangle as you walk, I guess.
Nice. This would be the time to have like the zeroed out ears where you just loop it through your ear and then have it just kind of like dangly earrings. You know?
That's an impressive level of commitment right there. If
Yeah,
you're going
yeah.
that
You're
far.
welcome for that visual, by the way.
So yeah, so there'll be other stuff. I want to say there's like water bottles and t-shirts. I'm sure there's t-shirts around and all kinds of other stuff. So anybody who's there, please don't hesitate to stop by. We'd love to hear from you. Love to see you all. I'll be in and out of other things, labs and sessions and CBC meetings and analyst meetings and all kinds of other stuff.
Yes.
It's going to be a whirlwind of an event, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I will point out that we will not be streaming next week as a result of Summit. They should be, as far as I know, just like in previous years, they'll be streaming the keynotes on the Summit landing page. So if you go to summit.redhat.com or redhat.com/summit, you'll be able to see the live stream of the keynotes happening. I believe they start at 9 a.m. Eastern, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and I saw some of the landing zone stuff within Restream where they're not going to use Restream, but I saw like the YouTube stuff like where they're staging it all. So it looks like it's all ready to go.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, I don't have anything else top of mind. I've been very narrowly focused on Summit the last few weeks. So very much looking forward to that being happening and then being done so we can move on to other great things.
Yep.
So let's talk ACM, of course. And as we get started, I want to point out that I am really excited for what's happening with ACM and ACS both right now, because I feel like we're really starting to evolve our story around creating this holistic set of capabilities and kind of bringing OpenShift, ACM, and ACS closer together in order to provide kind of that end-to-end solution for hosting, container-based workloads, right, or virtual machine-based workloads, managing those clusters and those workloads using ACM, and then securing those clusters and those workloads using ACS. And I don't know if anybody, for those who watched the roadmap presentation, the What's Next presentation now 2 weeks ago, I hope you can see as you look at those things at a high level, kind of the vision that we've started to congeal around. I'm not ignoring ODF and Quay, right? ODF has been integrated. It has a plugin directly in OpenShift for a long time. And then Quay, is a sort of a natural extension. There's integrations there where literally one Quay instance replaces all of the internal registry instances that you have and however many clusters you have. So I feel like those two are already there, even though the Quay UI is a little is off on its own, but still. I really love this story that we have around manageability and security with ACM and ACS on top of OpenShift. So I'll start there, or I'll leave it at that and hand off to Brad to really start to dig into details.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you. And before I jump in, I will share regarding Summit. While Christian and I won't be there, we will have attendance from the ACM team throughout Summit. So if you're interested in meeting some folks from ACM, people that have been on this series in the past, like Scott Behrens and Joydeep Banerjee, they will be there as well. We have, you can often think of ACM as that better together glue, like brings together other OpenShift components inside of ACM for that multi-cluster, help you manage at scale, automate at scale, optimize your automation. And so we'll also have Michael Tran from the Red Hat Edge Manager team. We'll have a workshop section focused on the flight or the Red Hat Edge Manager. So you'll have an opportunity to meet with some ACM folks. And so, yeah, allow me to share my screen and we can just jump right in.
Yeah, I think on the tech marketing side, I want to say Jimmy's going to be there.
Thank you. That was the name I even had written down to share. Yeah, Jimmy Alvarez, who he was on many moons ago.
Oh yeah, a long time ago.
Yep.
In our lead architect, Josh Becker, I already managed to make some connections regarding GitOps, for example. So, but not only. For example, if you want to know about the Argo CD agent integration story with ACM, you can reach out to Josh Becker.
Yeah, I'll hit him up because I'm definitely interested in that. And Brad, shameless plug for Sully and I. I mean, like, we love swag. I mean, I'm just saying, like, we want like an awesome ACM T-shirt or hoodie or whatever. I'm just throwing it out there.
We need to get that. I know that my peer August Simonelli he has some swag for the upstream of ACM, OCM, and so he's been out on KubeCons and road shows, and so yeah, I'll have to get my hands on those too. I'll be honest, as you were talking about the charms, I was like, who am I going to bribe to get me some of those?
Mhm.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm now showing the UI for ACM. It helps kind of this welcome page and overview kind of give you a good high level of what ACM is capable of, as well as I mentioned, like ACM brings other OpenShift components inside of the box. And so if you look at like applications that Christian mentioned he leads for, that's built on the OpenShift GitOps operator, Argo CD. So yeah, Jonny has the GitOps Galaxy guide. Christian and ACM product management work closely with that team. And if you look at the cluster section, we work closely with all the OpenShift ways to install a cluster, Hive, assisted installer. So all of those are part of the multi-cluster engine inside of ACM. The multi-cluster networking is the upstream of Submariner, so we can cross-connect clusters. We have our governance engine. This is our powerhouse policy engine that helps you get your clusters in their desired state. And so this, I like to start here because it gives you a nice overview, but we are going to jump into the virtualization topic, and I will just share with you the, these different pillars are reflected in the UI as well too. And the ways we can get to the Grafana, we have the existing capability within clusters to look at your cluster health. Up in the upper right corner, you can see the Grafana link. And these are the existing dashboards that help you get insight into your cluster health. You can just see straight away the power of being able to see in a central location your clusters deployed across many different providers, and you can see their performance, their utilization. And so we've complemented these cluster dashboards with virtualization dashboards. So again, to get to the observability dashboards for cluster health, you can be in the...
That was the link I couldn't find last week.
Yeah. I'm not trying to keep that one going, but I also had some challenges around finding that when I first came to ACM. But the link that will take you straight to the virtualization dashboards, if you go into the infrastructure and then virtual machines, we have the same thing, observability dashboards, and those will load here. And so the neat thing about these dashboards is they give you again view into your VM health. And as if I were to go into my local cluster and deploy new VMs, it would refresh. You would see 18 in here. And if I pause it, and it would reflect these statuses. So these dashboards are powerful. A work center for your VM and cluster admins, if you will, to see the health of their clusters. So I did jump to the virtual machine section. And so some of the things that we've introduced over the last few releases, you can perform VM actions here. You can see the stop, restart, pause, the capabilities right here. The other nice thing that's been added are these launch links. And so you can think of these as a central place to get to drill into the resources. And so as you see here, I click launch links. This allows you to drill into the specific resources. And so and
Brett, if you don't mind me interrupting,
yep, please.
So one thing to point out, so ACM is adding quite a bit of functionality around virtualization, and we just saw the observability dashboards and stuff like that. And so I think it's natural to make an association, if you're a VMware administrator, of ACM is similar to vCenter in the role that it plays. And I just want to point out that in some ways, yes, but in a lot of ways, no. So for example, let's just pick on the observability stuff. And Brad, Christian, keep me honest here. Of these dashboards provide a summary across all of the OpenShift clusters that are hosting virtual machines. And just like with vCenter, right? With vCenter, I have real-time virtual machine metrics that are available at the CLI using ESXtop. I can do basically the same thing with my OpenShift virtualization VMs. I can drop into the pod and I can, run commands to get real-time KVM information. I have near real-time information available within the cluster, right? So I think Prometheus does scraping every 15 seconds of the metrics that are coming out of the virtual machines. And then that aggregates up into the cluster Prometheus instance that keeps them for a few weeks. And then we have the ACM Grafana instance here that aggregates across all of those and summarizes to do, and I think what you're going to be showing here in a moment is things like trend analysis and capacity analysis and stuff like that at a higher level. So it's very much that tier or that pyramid of capabilities there.
Yep, that's right. This all complements sizing and tuning, and so these are going to be tools that will help you understand the state of your environment, whether it's clusters or OpenShift virtualization instances. And so these we have some nice interactive demos, that we can leave with folks that show you how to set this up. And like, I'm just showing the end result, but we'll leave these here for folks that want to go and see how did we get these dashboards set up. These interactive demos are nice because they allow you to just step through it step by step by clicking on these. Doesn't require the environment to be up and running. And so again, these are new dashboards that have been set up in our demo instance. This interactive demo will show you how to set those up. It relies on the governance set of policies get laid down that allow that data to be collected and then presented in these consoles. And Christian, the scraping that Sully mentioned, that can be configured, right? If it needs to be not as frequent or more frequent, is that right?
The scraping can be configured. So we are getting really this question from time to time. What I would like to mention is that we have some types of dashboards. So what you see here are the default dashboards. So they are coming as soon as you are installing ACM Observability. So this is a different step from the ACM installation. Plus, we have also some other dashboards which are custom dashboards. And one of the most important dashboards is the dashboard for right sizing for OpenShift Virtualization. So we basically would like to give our customers some hints about if the virtual machines are configured correctly regarding memory or CPU. We think that this is a very critical part. We have also a nice blog. Not sure if it has been shown. We should show it. And here we are really looking for feedback. So every feedback what you can give us on this blogs about if it is the right thing what we are doing, if we can do it better, how to improve it, then this would be super helpful for us. No? So what I really also would like to mention right now is about the dashboards. So we are going in the midterm away from Grafana. We are working on the migration to Persis. Persis is a CNCF project, which is doing the similar thing like Grafana. It's representing the data, and we are really making very, very good process. So it's a progress. So maybe you have the upstream link for Persis. We have also really some major customers who are working with us on the progress, and we are certainly expecting here some very important benefits. So one of the most important questions what we are getting from our customers is, what about fine-grained RBAC? I really get this question every week, and we have some solution in Grafana, but the solution is not so perfect at the moment, and it's simply hard to implement use cases like, think about you would like to modify a dashboard, and you would like to give this modified dashboard to your developers, but only a few in your team can see those dashboards. And with Persis, what you will be able to do, there is a Persis operator. You can just create a Persis dashboard resource. You can put it into a namespace later on the hub, for example, on the ACM hub. And when you basically assign fine-grained RBAC, you say who can see this namespace where the dashboards are in, who can edit the dashboards. And by one single fix, what we need to still provide, which is coming in June, we will have the mapping between OpenShift authentication and Persis authentication. And this is really a very big step forward. And the second thing is related. As we have the Persis dashboards in Git, we have much, or as an object with an operator, it's much easier for us to implement all kinds of Git scenarios. So everything what I mentioned is already possible right now, but it will really be much easier in the future. And I mean, what we are also solving is the big feedback what we are getting is the missing experience. So by having Persis natively in the ACM UI, We don't need to switch anymore between ACM UI, what Brett was showing with the VMs, and Grafana. So some of our customers, not everybody, says that this is some kind of disconnect. I would like to analyze my virtual machine. Then I would like to go to the dashboard, but I want to go back. I want to have some intelligent linking. And with Persis, which is also very good for embedding dashboards into the UI, we have much more options. So we will really be soon in a much better position here.
Yep. We won't have to jump out to a separate tab. That is going to be a much smoother experience for the admins. Sorry, Sully or Johnny, were you getting ready to say something?
I was going to point out that I hadn't actually looked at Persis before. And so while you were talking there, Christian, I went to persis.dev is the website. And there's a beautiful demo, like just a video that plays, or maybe it's a GIF or a GIF, depending on your English, that shows the dashboards and stuff. And it looks really great. I'm excited to see that coming into the product.
And I really can tell you, I'm so super happy how we are making progress at the moment with this Persis migration. So I can share with you more information if you like, but we are super happy at the moment how it goes.
Yep. And we do have a question here. So just for anybody, for our audience, please don't hesitate to ask questions here in chat. So we'll do our best to answer them. We have two of the experts here with us for ACM. Johnny and I will do our best to answer any other questions. You don't have to limit your questions to today's topic. Feel free to ask questions on whatever you want, but just know that we will generally prioritize today's topic or answering questions with regards to today's topic, at least chatting amongst ourselves. But we'll always try and answer them in chat. Also, if you are listening to us or not watching us live, feel free to reach out via email as well. You can reach out to Johnny or I, JONNY at redhat.com, or me, Sully, SULLY at redhat.com. So Hika asked a question here. With ACM, is there a single Argo CD instance to manage all clusters? And if so, is it a single point of failure? And in the event of an incident where we lose everything, what happens and how do we solve for that?
Christian, are you able to help with the Argo CD question there?
Yes. So first of all, we are really getting a lot of questions regarding ACM Argo CD integration, and the most important aspect are the different patterns what you can implement. And it really depends on the way you would like to work. And it is true that it is possible to have ACM and Argo CD integrated in a push model way. This means you have only one GitOps operator instance on the hub cluster, which is managing a fleet of clusters. Right? In a push way, this means GitOps operator is not installed on the managed clusters at all. There are some benefits and some disadvantages in the solution. So it is the default Argo CD behavior. We have the option to provide some RBAC features where you can limit the permissions on the managed clusters when you are deploying something. So this is all already present. And if you are losing the hub cluster, then it is true that you will not be able to do some syncs, you will not be able to do some self-healing unless you have specified this before. And but the applications will continue to run on the managed clusters. So the pods, what you have deployed, they will just continue to run. You just can't do any updates during this period. Now, in case that you cannot restore the hub cluster, when we have a very stable backup and restore procedure, this means you can just bring up a new hub cluster. You can already have this cluster available and just move all the managed cluster information to the new hub cluster. So this is all possible. We can do this very quick if it's needed. It really depends on the SLAs, what our customer has. If you don't want to follow this approach, when we have a pull model, which is basically working in a way that we are also providing UI support, but the managed clusters will pull the Argo CD applications from the hub cluster. This means there is no call from the hub to the managed clusters directly. And the pull model basically is certainly better if it comes to large environments where you want to have thousands of application sets. And it is also a little bit easier to configure, for example, security, because you can just use the RBAC on the managed clusters. But on the other hand, you need to install the GitOps operator or Argo CD on the managed cluster. So it is really and this is always the problem what we have. It's not there is one way which is always the best. It really depends on how you would like to work. There are some things what you need to consider. And if you would like to have such a discussion, we can maybe set up a call and go over the different options.
I like to think of that as being the Red Hat way, Christian. If there's always a bunch of different ways that you can do it, and it's one of those, like, we just say, well, here's 5 different ways. Like, pick the one that works the best for you and your situation and your stuff. Literally, while I've been sitting here, I got an email because I drafted an update to the virtual machine high availability KCS, and it's a perfect example of, like, here is 3 different options in order to configure fencing and remediation. Like, pick the one that works best for your scenario, type of thing.
Thanks. Right. And here it's really, I need just one example, why it's so hard. We have customers who can't connect from the hub cluster to the managed cluster. This is usually not a problem with ACM. No? But if you can't, you cannot use the push model. No? And we have customers for them, it's not a problem at all. And then you can use the push model. This is a simply if-else discussion what we need to have.
Yep, that's right. And I'm showing the documentation for what Christian was referring to with the ACM active passive setup. And I think that's a good point. And we do want to hear feedback from the ACM team. And you can reach me at Bradman, BRADDMIN at redhat.com. Thanks, Mom, for the 2 Ds. As Mother's Day just passed, I want to shout that out. Makes it real confusing for folks. Brad with 2 Ds. Yeah, we are keen on feedback, as Christian said. So, reach your account team or reach directly, whatever is the easiest for you. So I think we've covered some of the capabilities we have in the box. I think I'd like to share an exciting thing we're working on the roadmap regarding live migration, if that's okay. Yep. So for those familiar in the virtualization world, there's a capability to migrate VMs live. And so this is something we're working on. It will be out. It's going to be spanning multiple releases. So not the next release of ACM. Today we have ACM 2.13 as our current GA, and 2.14 will be released next. So this live migration would be available in 2 versions out, ACM 2.15. So that's something we're working on, and you might be familiar with vMotion. That's the equivalent. I believe we have.
Red, we are talking basically about 3 types of live migration. We have the namespace live migration. We have the in-cluster live migration, so the live migration between nodes. These are CNV topics where we are watching very closely. And once everything is ready, we might offer some nice UI features where you can, for example, say, I have an action as you have shown, and I want to migrate maybe between a namespace and a node. But what the ACM main focus is on is the cross-cluster live migration. So we have big customers who are asking for use cases where you cannot afford something like a warm migration. So even a short restart of a VM is not acceptable for them. And live migration is something which will come in fall or in beginning of next year as a GA feature where ACM and CNV are working together. We are certainly reusing the APIs from the CNV team, from the OpenShift Virtualization team. We are building the UI around. We are providing the inventory where we are showing which clusters are able to be migrated from. No? And we are certainly checking very closely about how we are doing this validation. And there are many talks at the moment going on, but we are very confident that we are finding a good solution.
That's cool. So you're saying it's going to get to a point to where within the console of ACM, before you migrate a machine over, it'll tell you if that cluster that you're deploying to has the resources or can take the workload or whatever.
Exactly. No, we are working on a dashboard. No? A dashboard. We are currently thinking about what are the metrics. Do we already have all the metrics we need for this live migration? Do we need maybe some more metrics which are making the live migration even better? When we are certainly thinking about how to design such a dashboard, think about we need metrics from network, we need metrics from storage, we need other VM-related metrics. So this is something we are thinking about how we can embed this in the flow. And certainly one part of this solution will be, we are expecting that certainly clusters are set up in certain rules. And here ACM can certainly also shine with our policies, that you can, or trust GitOps if you don't like to use policies, but every virtual machine is set up to certain standards. Think about the operator version, think about the OpenShift version, think about the network settings, which should be aligned. And then we have certainly some pods, some checks, which we can execute before we are allowing this migration.
Awesome. So I have one more nerd question.
And one thing I forgot, and then I stop, is certainly Ansible is always a discussion. You know very well, we are always thinking about, should we also include Ansible as part of this validation? In ACM, we work with pre and post hooks, and it's still under discussion. If we need Ansible or for our GA or not, maybe we need it after for more complex use cases. It really depends. Think about, you have a flat network, when you likely don't need Ansible because it's very unlikely that the migration will fail because of network. But if the networks will be more complex, then Ansible might be the only solution. So these are constant discussions about how to integrate Ansible into ACM.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And Brett, just real quick, I just have a question. This is just for my own. It's like I'm sitting there nerding out thinking about this, right? Like, is there going to be any integration with like Lightspeed may not be the right thing, right? But like where you can go in and like there's like a prompt and you can say, hey, which clusters can I live migrate my X virtual machine to, and then it gives you the output or whatever. I'm just riding the nerd train or the AI train a little bit. Like, is that something that y'all are road mapping or thinking about, or
we have
is that just?
I was last week. I was shown by a colleague a nice Ansible video where we are controlling this via AI, but we don't have concrete plans to make AI part of this live migration. But interesting feedback. We can think about this maybe a little bit more.
I don't know if it's real feedback or if it's just me like, oh man, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I've gotten myself in trouble by having opinions and voicing them internally. So I know the UX team and I love our UX team. So they now put me under the gun for providing a lot of feedback on things. So we do have a couple of questions here in chat. So I've been trying to answer them, replying in chat myself, but I just wanted to bring them up and answer a few of these. So Caillou asked about, is it possible to deploy a virtual machine using OpenShift Virtualization with an existing QCOW2 disk image on the node's local disk without first creating a PVC? So unfortunately, no. And the reason for that is because OpenShift needs a PVC in order to define how that virtual machine, how to connect to that virtual machine disk, right? How to connect to that piece of storage. So you should be able to create a PVC that just points to that local storage, create a file system mode PVC that has that disk inside of there, and it should work. But yeah, it'll need that PVC in order to understand how to connect to the disk. Karthikeyan, and apologies for butchering anybody's name. I'm terrible with English. I used to say I speak 2 languages: bad English and terrible English. So new to the OpenShift admin role, is there any documentation on troubleshooting steps? So the answer to that is yes. It's a little bit scattered, and it depends on what it is you're trying to troubleshoot. So kind of higher level things you'll mostly find in the documentation. So like for specific, earlier I was looking at the fence agent remediation configuration stuff, and like in the bottom of each one of the agents section is like troubleshooting steps or stuff, common things to look out for. On the other hand, sometimes, because OpenShift is made up of a whole bunch of operators, sometimes you have to go to like a specific operator's upstream like GitHub page in order to find information about how to do deep troubleshooting. Because typically we just assume, like, if you were to look at an OpenShift cluster and you go to the cluster operators, there's like 30 operators there, and we kind of hand wave over those in the documentation and just say, don't worry about them, right? They're self-managing. But when things go wrong, you can look at whatever the upstream documentation for those are. And so far, I've always found docs in that GitHub repo that explain like, here's where to look for things. Here's commands you can use to find, what logs to look at, stuff like that.
Yep. And so ACM's an operator on OpenShift. And just as Sully said, we have our own section within the ACM docs for troubleshooting. And so, yeah, I think another thing, are there other questions we want to keep working through?
Yeah, look, there's at least 2 more, I think.
Okay.
Maybe 3.
Tee them up.
Yeah. So I don't know if Munir's asking about ZTP. I don't know if any of us are ZTP knowledgeable. I am not.
I mean, it's like the term edge, like zero touch provisioning, right? It can mean a lot of things, and ACM plays a role in that. ACM orchestrates the OpenShift for RAN solution for the edge with single node OpenShift, like being applying DU profiles or distributed unit profiles for the RAN. ACM stamps that out at scale, using zero touch provisioning, and it bundles together the OpenShift GitOps operator, the ZTP plugin, amongst other things. And so, we have operators like Tom and IBU. And so it's a tough question. Not an expert, but can explain how ACM works with the zero touch provisioning process, or provide a doc on that one that I just talked about.
Okay. So Munir, I don't think any of us know the answer to that, but we'll see if we can find an answer while we're on the stream here. If not, we'll follow up on the next stream.
Was there a specific question on ZTP or what? Maybe I missed it.
Yeah. So essentially, so the question is, does ZTP support a hybrid deployment model where control plane and infrastructure nodes are virtual machines and compute nodes are bare metal? Definitely supported with, traditional OpenShift cluster deployments, but I don't know if ZTP can do that or not.
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah. We need to follow up with someone from that area.
Yep.
I'm digging in behind the scenes, so I'll try to find something.
Okay.
Thanks, Johnny. So another question from Munir: how are additional dashboards added to Grafana? Are they added as config maps or directly within Grafana?
Yeah, so I can take this question. So where a dashboard is added as a config map, and basically the way it works is that you can set up a developer Grafana instance. So this is all documented. We shared the official documentation link, and we shared a very nice training, which is a little bit older, but it still fully applies. So basically, you are deploying the developer Grafana dashboard, which is a new route. It doesn't exist by default, but you can design your dashboards, and then you can basically promote those dashboards into the production Grafana instance. So I can really assure here that many customers are doing it also this way. With Persis, as I have mentioned before, we want to do this process a little bit easier and a little bit more GitOps friendly.
Yeah, makes sense. I know I haven't used Grafana in ACM, or I should say I haven't extended Grafana in ACM, but I know with the community Grafana operator in an OpenShift cluster, you can define those dashboards and everything using config maps and secrets if you choose. So that is an option if you're using the community Grafana operator in OpenShift. And then the last one we got here, so Karthikeyan just responded back saying that he's looking for basic steps to validate that clusters are working or not. Typically, the best way to do that is literally deploy a workload. See if you can deploy a pod or a deployment, and if it does, then that's usually a good indication that everything is up and running inside of the cluster. The documentation does have a post-installation section that walks through just a ton of different stuff that you can do inside of there. I think one of the sections is like validation, and it's just a basic functionality test that's in there. So very similar of like, can I deploy a pod? Does the pod spin up? And am I able to... I usually suggest doing something like a basic Apache, HTTPD pod. So that way you can create a route for it, and you can try and browse to that pod and make sure that all the networking infrastructure works as expected and everything else.
Maybe I did want to just add on Christian mentioned the Ansible automation capability with the pre and post hooks. And I would share, it's been a while since we've been on to just talk about ACM in general. So I'm going to sneak a few things in, Sully and Jonny.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, 3 of the core pillars here: cluster lifecycle, application lifecycle, and the governance engine. They can all invoke the Ansible automation platform. And the first 2, cluster and application, can do so in pre and post hook fashion. And so I'm kind of showing that in the UI right now. You can, invoke playbooks, before a cluster is created, like maybe a ServiceNow ticketing approval needs to be required. And after that playbook is run to success, then the cluster is created. And then after the cluster is created, we call another Ansible playbook to create a load balancer VIP, maybe an F5 load balancer VIP. And that'd be an example of stitching together Kubernetes and non-Kubernetes automation using ACM, leveraging the Ansible automation platform. So you can see how powerful that can be with that example there. It's not just clusters and VMs that we're talking about here. It's other things. I mean, Ansible can probably configure a coffee maker. And so the other pillar, application lifecycle, same thing, pre, post hook, and then the governance pillar based on verbs, inform and enforce, can also invoke an Ansible automation playbook. So I just wanted to call that out. We also have integrations ongoing for Ansible for our event-driven workflows, and that's something that's in a preview. So we're always working on evolving our better together stories, and that often does involve things like Ansible or other Red Hat components like the Edge Manager that was mentioned earlier. I think also I would share. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. And we are convinced that the use cases with Ansible, ACM, and CNV will increase, because we know that many customers who maybe did not like the Kubernetes world before, they will go to Kubernetes because of the migration to OpenShift Virtualization. So we really see that the use cases will increase. So we are trying to be prepared here.
Yep. Yep.
This was like a good demo, like, to work through. So we talked about this a long time ago, where we were going to do something like this, and I don't know what happened. Like, using Ansible with ACM and just kind of like automating like a full workflow would be, for me, would just be fun to kind of do. But then it'd be fun to show too. It's something we should revisit when we get back.
Yes. Jimmy Alvarez is here. I believe I've seen he or his teammates do that exact demo. We may even have a recording of it somewhere. That I agree, that would be a cool one to show. Maybe another open question I heard was around the AI and question earlier. And I mentioned the upstream for ACM, the Open Cluster Manager, and there are some work with some customers around placement, and the initial, it's very early on, and some of the initial stuff, that we're working on with ACM would be to fall in line with OpenShift AI, would be an integration with queue and multi-queue. So another operator in OpenShift coming soon to a OpenShift theater near you would be around those queue and multi-queue components. Well, ACM will be working on integration around that. So it would complement or be, as Sully mentioned, there's multiple ways to do things, and Red Hat, has flexibility in those things. So, maybe you're using HPA, VPA, for your auto scaling. Well, maybe down the road, we'll have something around placement. And so more to come there, but we're not ignoring that. What else could we talk about here?
We do have another question if you want to.
Yes.
Check that on. So Munir is asking, how can ACM be used to manage certificate lifecycle management with Cert Manager for applications across all managed clusters?
Oh, I have written an old blog. It's 2 or 3 years ago. How policies can, for example, integrate with Cert Manager. So let me find the link, and then we can maybe update it to check if it's useful or not. One second.
Yep. And Munir, something that came out of the roadmap show last week, and I'm sorry if you can hear my dog barking, he's a monster, but something that came out of the roadmap live stream, not last week, but week before last, was that one of the default settings that's coming in Argo CD or OpenShift GitOps is going to be where it's going to ignore the differences on some of these high churn resources, so like certificates and stuff like that. So if you are managing, if you get to a point where you're using like an OpenShift GitOps or something like that, or Argo CD to manage the certificates, it'll ignore the differences when they start rotating, and then that way your apps won't be out of sync. They'll always stay healthy and synced and available and stuff like that. So it was a cool feature. I'm glad we're implementing it. It's something that like my team has to go out a ton of times and fix, because the status updates or whatever, and it's dumb.
And while Christian's pulling up the certificate blog there, the governance pillar has policies around certificate expiration, and so that's powerful. I think anybody that's been in any type of operations role has dealt with an expired certificate. So this will give you that comfort knowing that you can get alerted on that through the governance. There's the governance pillar has in the box, and I was just showing the in the box for expired certificate policy, but there's a community repo around that, and so I will share that. Yep.
So while Brad is showing, I just want to have one short comment on the blog. So it might or might not fully cover the use case which has been asked, but it really shows how very nicely policy templates work. Now, so you can basically templatize certain values which are coming either from the same managed cluster or from the hub cluster. It's very powerful and flexible, and I can really assure you that many customers are exactly working this way, that we are using policy templates in order to set up dynamically, for example, certificates using Cert Manager.
Very good.
So, Brad, I got distracted because I was managing spam in chat. So I heard you talk about kind of the three aspects where ACM fits into, cluster lifecycle, application lifecycle, and management. So I always like to highlight, most folks know by now that I'm kind of I am very much on the cluster administrator side, and I used to focus a lot on the install process and stuff like that. I always love the install experience inside of ACM for any cluster type. The infrastructure environments is always really cool of being able to go in and you define an environment, you generate an ISO, you boot your nodes to the ISO, and they pop into the interface, and you can, be off and running just like that. And it's an on-prem assisted installer experience that you have, which is awesome. That's
right. That's a great point. The same experience you get in the Red Hat cloud would be the same experience you'll have in inside of ACM for the infrastructure environment here is based on the OpenShift assisted installer service. And so it's exactly the same if you're familiar with doing it in the cloud. It's no different than the assisted installer packaged with ACM inside of this section here.
Yep. And I know we got I think we talked about it in the roadmap, but in the 4.19 timeframe, I know there's a tech preview installer experience coming out. That's a self-contained installer. I'm looking forward to showing that one off. I know that's tangential to ACM, but there's a lot of cool stuff that's happening there just to make things, I'll say, easier for everyone in that regard. But ACM is still like, we were writing the multi-cluster OpenShift virtualization guide is one of the ones that we've been working on. And it's like ACM is always the first thing that we recommend deploying, right? Get your first cluster up and running, on-prem, use ACM to, or deploy ACM on top of that, and then use ACM to deploy and manage all of the clusters afterwards. Because of that just amazing install experience. And then the manageability aspects, of course.
Yep. It's really helpful for all the sizing, and folks are going to be new often coming to containerization from other, technologies. And so having ACM from the get-go is going to allow you to use those built-in dashboards that tell you the health of your fleet, whether it's a cluster or an OpenShift virtualization instance.
Yep. Okay. I successfully sidetracked you long enough.
No, you're good. This is awesome. And I think we'll be able to share these interactive demos. I think the other thing, the roadmap type stuff, we get together as a group of product managers and do the what's new and what's next. And somebody from the ACM team just went out and did the what's next. So if you ever want to see what's happening in OpenShift world, this is a great resource, the what's new, what's next. And so, we have two sections. What's new is after a release drops, we will highlight that with different product managers going over that in video, much like we're here on YouTube today, and then a slide accompanying it. And so we have this historically. The what's next would be more the roadmap stuff. And so this is a good resource to see the lay of the land, what's available and what's coming. So what else could we go over?
So I may have missed it because again I feel like a squirrel who's got ADHD today. So Christian, did you go into any depth on the virtualization things yet?
I did not fully understand the question. Do you want me to talk a little bit more about ACM OpenShift Virtualization integration, or?
Yeah, because I know that there's a lot of stuff that's happening there, and I remember you going over it a little bit earlier of showing like ACM, and the way I typically describe it is ACM for virtual machine admins and virtual machine users provides me that one interface where I can go and I can see all of my VMs, and I don't really have to care about which cluster they're in behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So I can do like you're showing here, Brad. I had to look and see whose screen we're seeing. So like on a VM basis, I can go in and I can do the basics, right? Start, stop, open the console, stuff like that. But I can also click on that VM and it'll just take me directly to the cluster that's hosting that VM, and I can do all of the full set of things. I don't have to remember, VM 74 is in cluster A, and in order to get to cluster A, I got to go to this console URL. Like, no, it's all within inside of here.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I know that this is proven.
And I can really tell you that we are working very hard on making here the necessary improvements. So think about the actions, what Brad was showing. No? So that we are discussing at the moment, we are creating a snapshot action in the next release. We are creating a restore from snapshot actions. We are working on delete protection when a VM is running, but we have also several other actions like the backup action. No? So we are constantly checking what is the next action, what we can provide for our customers, certainly based on feedback, what we are getting. But this is really, we are going here step by step. You mentioned the RBAC. This is one of our top priorities at all. No? So it was always not a problem in ACM to say, I want to configure cluster level RBAC. No? So you can only see the virtual machines on a cluster, but this is not enough. We need also namespace level RBAC. We need to have a way to say on this cluster, on the development clusters, you can only see the VMs in certain dev namespaces, for example. And this is really not easy, but we are working on this very hard. And in the next release, ACM 2.14, we will at least achieve a technical preview, so it will be documented. It will be available for you to try out the fine-grained RBAC, so that we are getting in the position that we can basically say, you are a VM admin, and you can basically do only VM-related tasks. Now, you cannot create a cluster in ACM. You should not be allowed to delete a cluster, but you can do everything related to OpenShift virtualization. So this is our goal we are working on.
And Christian, and one of the things upcoming, I believe, help keep me honest here, but much like we can select multiple clusters from the cluster view and then perform actions on them, is that coming for virtualization?
Multi-select is a very important topic.
Yep.
We are working hard on creating how to create nicely a VM from ACM. We are working on very hardly to integrate the dynamic plugin so that you can basically do everything what you can do in a single OpenShift cluster from ACM directly. No? We are working on integrating the tree view, which is a very important concept in the CNV folks, so that you have basically a root tree view where you select the cluster set, maybe when you select a cluster, and when you are suddenly inside the cluster and can do all the actions that you can do on a single cluster, but controlled centrally from ACM. These are all the things what we are working on. And again, the top focus is the usability. This is what the customers are telling us, sometimes even very hard. And we want to provide everything from a single pane of glass. I'm not sure if you have already shared the blogs, but think about alert management. We are getting so many requests from the customers regarding alert management. Think about you want to handle now the alerts from virtual machines. You want to silence the alerts. You want to configure the alert destinations. No? But the most important part, where we don't have a solution yet, is the actionable alerts. Should we provide actionable alerts at all? Should we provide actionable metrics? Should we provide actionable dashboards? These are current discussions where we again discuss a lot about how we are doing it. And I believe that everybody agrees that Ansible will be a factor here, but we did not fully come to some conclusion yet, but it is very likely to come.
Nice. And Jonny, we'll be able to get links into the show description, episode description after the fact, right?
Yep. Just send
excellent.
me
So
whatever
we'll
you
get
want me
that
to put
blog
in there.
Yep.
Cool.
And this is what Christian described, I'm sure, in the cluster section. And so multi-select, and again, these are cluster type of actions, but what we'll have is the ability to select multiple VMs and work on them in a single.
This is clearly part of the roadmap, but it's not yet there, and it will not be there yet in the next version. But this year, it's likely to come.
Yep. Awesome.
I want to point out something, which is like, I was chatting with some folks earlier this week, and they were pointing out, like, the OpenShift virtualization UI is not, it's not necessarily very virtualization administrator friendly as it stands today. And like, I want to point out that one, the UX team is working feverishly to improve it. Literally, they are like stalking us at Summit, like following us around because they want to talk to as many people as they can about virtualization and how to do it. So, Peter Kruser and the rest of the UX team, who are amazing, by the way. I love working with those folks. They are so receptive to feedback and just helping make things better. Keep an eye, if you're at Summit next week, keep an eye on the booth for them, and they would love to hear from you. But two, I also try and remind folks of, like, a year ago, 14 months ago, was kind of when we switched the way that we were, I'll say the target audience for OpenShift virtualization. Because prior to that, OpenShift virtualization was a part of our application modernization story, right? It was, hey, app teams, you're writing, either updating, modernizing your applications from VMs into containers, or you're extending your existing applications, and containers are the native fit for that. So why don't you bring your virtual machines onto the same platform, and you can manage them all in one place and all that other stuff.
Yep.
And then, the world changed, and suddenly it made sense for us to appeal to a broader virtualization, set of users. And yeah, the interface was, it was the OpenShift interface. It is the OpenShift interface. It was focused on application folks. And I just want to, like, I like to go back and remind folks of, like, one, it has changed dramatically in the last year. If you go back and look at some of the earlier videos, like Jonny and I, we had OpenShift virtualization folks on, I don't know, 4 or 5 times over the last 3 or 4 years. Like, if you go back and look at some of the old videos on there, some of the old other YouTube videos and stuff that we've published since, OpenShift virtualization GA'd in 4.5, like, it's just had massive improvements. And like, seeing all of this stuff come together, really gives me, like, a lot of, it's very exciting to me. And we're getting better at, because Kubernetes admins tend to be CLI and API first, right? That's why all of our docs, everything is in YAML first, because that's the way that Kubernetes folks think. But virtualization admins, and both Jonny and I were one for a long time, like, we tend to start things with the GUI, and it's not until later that we, I did it the first, 10,000 times, whatever, using the GUI, and now I think there's a better way to do it. Let me figure out the API.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're just getting better at those things and abstracting all of that through the UI. And I think it's, anyways, this is just my long-winded way of saying, one, thank you to all of the UX folks and the engineers and stuff who've been working diligently on that. And just as importantly, thank you to everybody who's been providing feedback, because in my opinion, it is night and day different. And just seeing all the stuff that ACM has planned on this is just amazing.
And I would share talking about other ACM capability. We talked about the virtualization live migration coming soon in the next few releases. We also are working actively on cluster migration. So managed cluster, moving from one ACM hub to another. That's something that's in a preview now. And so being able to migrate your workloads around that will help with that active passive documentation I pulled up earlier around business continuity. So you could swing your managed clusters from one hub to another. You could think of blue-green type of testing where that would come in handy. Like a scheduled type of failover scenario, or an unscheduled. That's going to be real powerful to swing your clusters around. So want to sneak that in too. Not necessarily virtualization, but it complements the virtualization capability we talked about with Live Migrate coming.
I know this is not at all even tangentially related to your area, in your product, Brad and Christian, but I would love to see the same thing with cluster nodes. Like, can I detach a node from an OpenShift cluster and then attach it to a new cluster? And I know I can already, like, I can feel the engineering folks, if they're watching this, like, cringing, because like there's so many things to do with like how RCOS is configured and certificates and all of this other stuff. But it's one of those, like, particularly if I have workload running on there, like, disconnect this node from cluster A, keep the workload running, now connect the node to cluster 7, and let it import that workload, and so on and so forth. Like, that would be, I don't know, that would be a panacea for me, if you will.
That sounds interesting. I have not heard this before from a customer.
Yeah, it's something that we could do with like Red Hat virtualization. vSphere can do it. I think OpenStack can do it. But Kubernetes is it's fundamentally different. In particular, the way that OpenShift and we manage our cost nodes inside of there. So
Yeah. So we had Peter on the stream before, and so I posted the episode that he was on. So if anybody wants to go back and check it out, it's in the comments here.
Yeah, thanks, Jonny. So I mean, I always have a ton of questions, but I know that we're right at an hour right now, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So, for our audience, for the folks who are watching us, please, any questions that you have, go ahead and put those into chat. We'll do our best to answer those as we kind of go through the last few minutes here. If you, again, as a reminder, if you're not watching us live, please don't hesitate to reach out to Jonny or I. Again, I admit I'm always behind on email, so apologies if I have not responded to you. Somebody sent us a message after last week's stream about the tiering stuff. I'm literally looking at the draft that I have up right now, and it's about half complete because I'm running behind. So I will respond to you.
Yeah, and we agreed that maybe in 1 or 2 months we will come back and maybe get a little bit deeper into the ACM CNV integration.
Yep.
Christian, you're always welcome back, man. You know that. Anytime you want to come back, you just let me know.
Yeah, I see a nice question on HSM Lunas. I actually deployed a few of those hardware security modules. I think ACM would be depending on OpenShift capabilities. I know there are some ways to integrate with HSM's hardware security modules. But I don't know that we have any, like, is this a supported approach or not? So I think that's something we'll have to follow up with somebody on the OpenShift side that's more and closer to the HSM capabilities.
Yeah.
Jonny, did we get an answer on that ZTP question also?
I just got somebody that's replying back to me, so I'm asking the question right now. So trying to find out.
Okay. So if there's not any other questions, we'll give Jonny a couple of seconds here to figure that out. So if there's not any more questions from the audience, I do want to take a moment to again thank Brad and Christian for coming on. I know this was a little bit last minute, like I said at the beginning of we just kind of tossed y'all in front of the bus because Brad happened to reach out and remind me of where the link was. But we greatly appreciate y'all coming on, and I love this reminder of ACM and its capabilities. And y'all know I'm a huge fan of ACM, and I just love having seen the evolution. I remember when ACM came over from IBM, a long time ago. Gosh, that was a long time ago. So, I love seeing the evolution and seeing all the capabilities that have been added there. So, no. So I see Jonny shaking his head. So, Brad, Christian, any last thoughts from y'all?
No, we will come back. So thanks a lot for inviting us.
Yep. Thank you very much.
And Jonny, last thoughts from you?
Yeah, just gonna say, Munir, if you want, email me at Jonny@Red Hat. It's on the screen here, or Sully and I. And if I do get an answer, I'll reply back to you with the answer, and then I'll queue this up for our top of mind when we come back after Summit. But no, Brad, thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate your time. I'm glad that you were, I'm glad that you were in the water when we were fishing last week, and that you bit down. So like, really do appreciate it. Yeah, hook, line, and sinker, got him. And then Christian, always a pleasure, man. I love talking to you, and I'm glad to see that things are. I'm glad to see how far things are going. It's pretty amazing.
Awesome.
So thanks, y'all. Safe travels for anybody who's going to Summit or, well, going anywhere for that matter in the near future. And we will see everybody in 2 weeks.